I noticed that there's a YouTube commenter every week who comments on our outerwear. He doesn't understand why we wear like sweatshirts indoors. So I'm going to make it a point to dress warmer and warmer and warmer as the season goes along.
For anyone not watching on YouTube, just getting the audio, Evan is actually wearing a Team USA bull riding jacket. That is the official Team USA jacket that the bull riders wear. Okay, anyways, first story has to come from the Jets. So Monday night, massive game against the Bills. They get a miracle Hail Mary at the end of the first half to Allen Lazard for a touchdown, but missed field goals, insane amount of penalties. They lose to the Bills on Monday night. Okay. Big news comes Tuesday morning. Jets give up a third-round pick to receive Aaron Rodgers' old friend, Davante Adams. The Jets will take on all of Davante Adams' sizable salary here. The pick can become a round 2 pick if Davante Adams is a first or second team All-Pro, or if he's on the Jets' active roster in an AFC Championship or Super Bowl. Evan, what was your reaction this morning when you saw the deal finally go down? Davante Adams is a Jet.
It just always seemed inevitable. And the Jets' season is already starting to fall apart. Although, you know what? If we could analyze this team like a normal team, we would probably say that the Jets have been pretty unlucky because 3 of their 4 their first loss was at San Francisco in week 1. And their other losses, all their other losses were by 1 score, 6 points or fewer. Now they've only beaten the Titans and the Patriots, so no quality wins there. But I mean, this has been a team that, a couple of flips of the coin, and they could be 4-2. I think that this was an inevitable move, a move that they had to make, regardless of whether they're 4-2 or 2-4. I thought it was a good deal. I mean, getting an All-Pro caliber wide receiver for what is likelier to be a third-round pick than a second-round pick is a move that they definitely should make. I think the fallout is not positive for Garrett Wilson. I think it's positive for the Jets. And all of a sudden, Davante Adams' hamstring is healed, and I expect him to be out there. They play the Steelers this week.
Yeah, okay. So let's go player by player here and talk about what we think is going to happen. I think the big question, well, let's start with Davante Adams first. Do you think this is a win or a loss if you own Davante Adams in fantasy? Obviously, you get a big quarterback upgrade, but you are no longer the alpha on your team.
Oh, whoa. I think he's going to be the alpha.
Okay. So you think that he's going to be a winner or neutral?
He's absolutely a winner because he wasn't even playing for the Raiders.
Okay. That's a fair point. No, I do think one thing I'll say about Davante Adams, extreme red zone chemistry, extreme end zone chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. They used to run a play in Green Bay. They would get to the 1-yard line. It was not a run. They would run this play at the 1-yard line and score at such a high rate, throwing the ball to Davante Adams. So I think that, if anything, it is a nice win for Davante Adams, or at least maybe a small win for Davante Adams. I think clearly Aaron Rodgers is a winner here. This should make the Jets a little bit more pass heavy. I think they should be a little bit more pass heavy in the red zone. So I think Aaron Rodgers is clearly a winner. Clearly, Mike Williams is a big loser. He's gone. We'll see if he ends up on another team. But if you had to drop Mike Williams, I think that's totally fine.
Yep.
I'd call Allen Lazard a big loser, despite his best friend's narrative with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the new best friend, the better best friend, Davante Adams, is now here. We are going to have, starting right away, we are going to have Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams combining for almost 50% of the Jets' targets here. It is really hard for anyone else to get there when those guys are sucking up that many targets. So I'll stop there. Evan, any more comments on Mike Williams, Lazard, Aaron Rodgers' outlooks going forward?
I do think that Lazard will remain heavily involved in 3 receiver sets. I think that they'll put him in the slot. I mean, they've got a pretty impressive 3 receiver set all of a sudden, and I don't think that Garrett Wilson is going to equal Davante Adams. I think it should be maybe 27-23 or 28-22. I think that Davante Adams is going to be the alpha for sure, reuniting with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I think that Garrett Wilson is a fairly significant loser.
Okay, so I think Garrett Wilson is a loser, but probably a smaller loser than Evan thinks. First of all, Davante Adams is going to be 32 years old in December. I'm not like certain that Davante Adams is better than Garrett Wilson at this point. I still think Garrett Wilson is a loser. His profile to date is one that needs volume, right? His average depth of target is only 8.4 yards with Aaron Rodgers. That's way down from the 11 yards or so that he had in his first 2 years. I mean, he's 69th out of 94 qualifiers in average depth of target. So, yeah, he needs volume, which is going to be less now. However, maybe more pass plays, maybe more offensive efficiency as a whole. That would be good for Garrett Wilson. So, I think Garrett Wilson is a loser, but probably a little bit less than Evan does, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think that like Garrett Wilson isn't like still a really good talent. It's just the chemistry stuff with Aaron Rodgers, the history. You know, that's something that I would bet on. That's always been a big thing to Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Garrett Wilson's been really, I mean, the last 2 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has trusted him in a big way. I thought Garrett Wilson played an awesome game last night there against the Bills. The other big question is on Breece Hall. And people keep asking me, is Breece Hall a winner or loser in this situation? I think it's neutral, but last night was so good for Breece Hall. First game under interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich and offensive coordinator Todd Downing. 86% of the snaps, that's a season high. 76% of the routes, that's a season high. 18 carries, that's a season high. And of course, he ran for over 100 yards in a season high. Shout out to Jared Smola for that and for those notes. Listen, if Breece Hall gets that kind of work, he's going to smash. You know, if this new regime is like, we've seen enough of this Braylon Allen stuff. I think Braylon Allen only played like 12 snaps last night. That's good for Breece Hall. It won't matter what's going on with Devonta Adams and Garrett Wilson. So, Evan, what do you think about Breece Hall going forward here in this new look Jets team?
I think that Breece Hall, I think that Breece Hall is a huge winner. I think that the offensive efficiency is going to increase significantly. I mean, you're essentially upgrading from Mike Williams to Devontae Adams, okay?
Yeah.
Also, Jeff Ulbrich came out and said, I say whoa because we're about to have breaking news into the show.
Yes.
Jeff Ulbrich came out and said that they want to lean on the run going forward. Jeff Ulbrich is a defensive guy. You know, he played linebacker for the 49ers. He, he was I think he was the defensive coordinator before he got the promotion to interim head coach. They're going to lean on Breece Hall. I mean, that much is clear, and the offense is going to be better. So big winner, Breece Hall, I think.
Okay, breaking news into the show. As we're recording this live, Amari Cooper has been traded to the Bills. Amari Cooper has been traded to the Bills in exchange for a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. Bills will get a 6th-round pick back. We will get to this when we get to the Bills and the Browns. This is what we call a tease in the industry. Stay tuned to the show. We will get to this Bills and Browns stuff.
What a fun day
when we get to it. Wild. Okay. Number 2 story on our pre-show sheet was the New England Patriots, as Drake May made his NFL debut. Of course, number 3 overall pick, Drake May. Immediately, Drake May showed why it was completely insane to make him sit behind Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, he took some hits. Yeah, he made some mistakes. But that's how you get better, and that's how you get ready to win. And honestly, given the spot, really good Texans defense. That was Thorne's number 1 offensive line, defensive line mismatch of the week against this awful Patriots offensive line. Drake May, 20 of 33, 243, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of the interceptions was insane. Also ran 5 times for 38 yards. So I was very impressed, especially given the spot in his first start. Evan, what did you think of Drake May's NFL debut?
It only took one start for us to see that this kid needs to be playing. The offense was watchable. I think that the level of athleticism that he brings, he's such a better athlete than Jacoby Brissett, is going to offset some of their offensive line issues. I mean, he did still take 4 sacks on 37 dropbacks, but he made some big plays down the field. The Patriots had 4 pass completions of 20-plus yards in this game alone against Houston, a good defense. In their first 5 games, they had 6 combined pass plays of 20-plus yards. That's per Rich Rebar. So you see some downfield aggressiveness. You see he runs 5 times for 38 yards. He made some mistakes. His accuracy was a little bit shaky, but I mean, he looked really good, I think. And dude, they play the Jaguars this week.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about. I last week I was like, maybe by week 9 or week 10, we could start talking about Drake May being a a starting caliber option in fantasy leagues, like the Jaguars have a terrible defense and he can run. I mean, we're already talking about Drake May as a potential low end quarterback one.
Just as a reminder, Drake May ran for 1,147 yards and 16 touchdowns in his final 2 college seasons. That was across 26 games. What do you think about Pop Douglas as an ad? I just got done talking to Daigle about this on the Waiver Wire show. Evan, Pop Douglas in this game looked really good, 692-1. Now, Pop Douglas is like a 5'8", 180-pound at best slot receiver. I'm not overly excited about it, but it certainly looks good this week against the Jags. What do you think about Pop Douglas as an ad?
Well, this is another thing. Like, all of a sudden, like now we're talking about like, oh, Pop Douglas could be a fantasy starter. Kayshon Boutte made a big play, scored a touchdown in Derek Stingley's coverage in this game. Hunter Henry had 3 for 41 and a touchdown. Like all of a sudden, we got some fantasy options here. And I know not everything's about fantasy. You don't want to ruin Drake May's confidence or whatever, but like the kid needs to play. He needs to learn. And yes, Pop Douglas is all of a sudden, I mean, against the Jaguars, he's a locked-in wide receiver 3 that play this week.
Okay. Ramondre Stevenson did miss this game with a foot injury. Antonio Gibson got 17 opportunities, but we talked about this Sunday morning on the Last Minute live stream show. I felt really good about not playing Antonio Gibson at all, just on efficiency concerns, and that's exactly what came to fruition. Just, it's going to be really hard given the setup. But against the Jaguars, if Ramondre misses again, perhaps you could do worse. All right. Let's go to the number 3 story, which comes out of Jacksonville. I suspect if they didn't have a London game this week, another London game this week, Doug Peterson might already be gone, right? Like he's just seems like he doesn't care at this point. He's doing anything and everything to like point the finger at other people, go crazy. They got embarrassed by the Bears in this game, 35-16. Now, there were some horrific drops by Jags wide receivers, but T-Law, I mean, people are like ready to give up on T-Law. And Trevor Lawrence, not a starter. He's got to go. Where are you at on Jaguars right now, Evan? Then we do need to get to the Travis Etienne injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's got to be, Doug Peterson has to be the favorite to be the next quarterback, next head coach fired. I don't, we've talked about this like ad nauseum. I feel like the offensive line is bad. They can't run the ball consistently. Players are accusing each other in the locker room of quitting. Andre Sisco, their safety, was talking about like other players on the team maybe quitting. Yeah. It's not a good situation. I mean, from a real life standpoint and from fantasy, there's really nobody that we can consistently trust at this point. Maybe Evan Ingram going forward. Gabe Davis was the guy with the big game. Yeah. This week it was Brian Thomas last week. I don't know.
Yeah. A couple things I think that are important here. First, Travis Etienne fumbled in the second quarter. It was overturned on replay, but he was already on thin ice. Then he pulled his hamstring. He's considered week to week, right? And I was like, man, here we go for Tank Bigsby. Now, Dearness Johnson outsnapped Tank Bigsby in this game against the Bears 35-17, presumably because the Jaguars were trailing pretty big the entire second half, and they simply do not trust Tank in pass protection, period. And that was it. So, I don't want to go too far on this. Like, the game was already out of reach, and Dearness Johnson got like a full series to himself when Lawrence was in there, but the game was pretty much out of reach anyways. I think when Travis Etienne misses time, as I expect him to with his hamstring, it's going to be way more Tank than Dearness Johnson. I just want to note that they still don't seem to trust Tank in pass protection. The other big note that I had was what Evan mentioned. Evan Ingram, great to see him back, man. 10 catches for 102 yards on 10 targets. Tons of scheme stuff, like short little quick hitters and screens. To Evan Ingram, he ran 32 routes on 41 Lawrence dropbacks, was slot or wide on 60% of his snaps. I mean, he's run 41 routes this season, Evan Ingram, and been targeted on 14 of them. Like, at the position of tight end, we're just getting 7 targets is a huge win. Evan Ingram is a smash. So I'm happy that I have a lot of Evan Ingram. Hopefully he can sustain health. I thought he looked really good. Evan, any more thoughts on Tank Bigsby or Evan Ingram before we move on?
Yeah, Tank Bigsby has 1 target on the entire season. And in this game, the Jaguars were trailing, and it was a lot of Dearness Johnson. So, you kind of hinted at this already, but it seems clear to me that when Etienne misses time, if the Jaguars fall behind, which they're they're very prone to fall behind. I don't think that they necessarily will against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
They have to play in London again
Yeah.
this week. But in games where they fall behind, I don't think that Bigsby is going to be on the field, and they are prone to falling behind.
Yeah. One more note on the Evan Ingram stuff. So when he hits his volume ceiling, which honestly, he has 5 games with 10 plus catches in his last 12 regular season games. I mean, it's just going to make Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk more volatile, right? Like, I still like Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk as plays, but they're going to be more volatile because Evan Ingram can go out there and earn 10 targets in a game, earn 11 targets in a game, and obviously that's not great for those guys. All right. Fourth story comes from the Chargers, sprint out to a 20-0 lead at halftime here. Hold on for a 23-16 win. No Gus Edwards. Chargers let J.K. Dobbins loose for 25 carries and 2 catches. The big news, though, well, the fact that they're willing to let J.K. Dobbins have this much volume, I think is big news, period. The second big news, though, that Kimani Vidal made his NFL debut. He played 19 snaps compared to J.K. Dobbins' 57. Hassan Haskins, just 3. Vidal also ran 10 routes compared to Dobbins' 14. I think you saw him make that big play up the sideline, did Kimani Vidal in the pass game. I think they like him in the pass game a decent bit. We don't know when Gus Edwards is going to be back. And honestly, man, if they're going to give Gus Edwards 27 touches a week, he's got to be one of the most likely players in the league to get hurt. I mean, he's just got to be, So, Evan, what did you think of Vidal's debut? Anything else on Chargers?
Kimani Vidal made an awesome play. He ran a wheel route in the first quarter for his first NFL touch and got behind the defender and scored a 38-yard touchdown. He's also a guy who profiles as a pretty solid runner, and we saw him make obviously that big play in the passing game. I think that the sense is that there is a feeling that it's inevitable that at some point J.K. Dobbins is going to miss time, and certainly if the usage continues anywhere close to this, he had 25 carries in this game and played 75% of the snaps, then that the probability of J.K. Dobbins missing time is going to rise. But for as long as he's in there, I mean, he's a legit RB1. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt were both back for this game, and they make all the difference in the world. Kimani Vidal is definitely a guy we're stashing on benches. Did he play more than Hassan Haskins?
Yeah, 19-3 in snaps.
Nice. That's awesome. That's great to see. He comes right off the inactive list and plays ahead of a guy who was getting snaps going into that game. That's really nice to see. One other note, Ladd McConkey head injury and Quentin Johnston ankle injury, and those guys have been the Chargers' numbers 1 and 2 receivers to this point.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston, Hayden Hurst, Ladd McConkey all got hurt in this game. I thought Ladd was playing well. I don't see how serious Ladd's injury is. He seemed like he was playing through it, kind of, but I think Ladd is a hit for the Chargers. It's just really hard to see it in this offense. He did earn 8 targets here. Herbert threw it 32 times. I mean, Ladd McConkey's a hit. It's just not the right scheme for fantasy production, I think. All right, let's go to the number 5 story of the week. Comes out of New Orleans. They go to Spencer Rattler here in a home game against the Bucs. And by the way, Derek Carr is expected to miss another, 2 to 4 weeks, sounds like. So Rattler, Jay Glazer said, has this job. And honestly, given the way he played on Sunday, deserves it. I mean, he impressed for a round 5 stone-cold rookie who lost Chris Olave early in the game to a concussion. They have a horrible offensive line situation. Rattler goes 22 of 40 for 243, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He also had a 16-yard run. I thought it was pretty impressive. Evan, what do you think of Spencer Rattler's NFL debut?
Yeah, I think that Spencer Rattler played about as well as you could possibly expect, especially for a rookie, a 5th-round rookie, as you mentioned, missing his starting left guard, right guard, and center, and Chris Olave went out with a concussion really early in this game. The problem is, looking forward, they are on a short week this week. Yeah, it's the Sean Payton Bowl, the Sean Payton, Dennis Allen revenge game. Dennis Allen even used to coach for the Broncos, their defensive coordinator in 2011. They're probably not going to have Chris Olave. It sounds like they're not going to have Rashid Shaheed, who suffered a knee injury in this game. And I don't think that any of those interior linemen are going to be back either. And that's against the Broncos defense that has played pretty well all season. So that's my concern going forward. But independent of all that, all that chaos, Spencer Rattler absolutely looked like he belongs in his first game.
Well, it sounds like his top target Thursday is going to be Bub Means. How excited are you to see Bub Means as a #1 target for Spencer Rattler on Thursday, Evan?
Yeah, and I mean, I already have the matchup column up for this game, but it looks like the Broncos are going to be without Patrick Surtain as well.
Yeah.
Bub Means, 6'1", 212, with 4.43 speed, had 8 targets to lead the team against Tampa Bay. He's going to be playable, no question. I mean, probably everybody's going to be playing him on Showdown.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the NFC now. We'll go alphabetical order. Start with the Arizona Cardinals. So another disappointing result for the Cardinals here. They go to Lambeau. They got smoked 34-13. They lost Marvin Harrison to a concussion after just 8 snaps. Worry meter for me on Arizona is certainly up. I mean, as a thrower, Kyler has had one good game all year, and that was against the Rams defense, which may be, the second worst in the NFL behind the Panthers. So as a runner, like for fantasy, I'm not panicked on Kyler Murray because he can have 50-yard runs. He can run for 80 yards and a touchdown in a game, and he's going to be reasonable as a thrower. But man, on a real life perspective, it's certainly worrisome right now, especially without Marvin Harrison. Evan, what do you think of Kyler and the Cardinals game up in Lambeau?
Oh man, this one really hurt because I was all over the over in this game at 47, and I know that some people took it at 47.5, and it looked like an absolute lock. I mean, I already spent the winnings, and they scored 3 points combined in the fourth quarter, and it was a push at 47. So, I mean, at least I didn't lose, but I mean, some people lost if they took it at 47.5 because I think it closed at 47.5.
Does this make you change your mind forever on line shopping? Will you now start to shop lines, Evan, to try to get the best number?
Well, I did get the best number.
Maybe there was a 46.5 out there.
Oh, well, yeah, that would have taken too much time. No, the big concern right now for Arizona is that Marvin Harrison Jr. Suffered a concussion in this game, and so I don't know if he's gonna play. I mean, he's a big difference maker for them. Obviously, Michael Wilson would move into the #1 receiver role. Zay Jones has been activated now, so he's a player that they can use a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the Cardinals they did not hold up their end of the bargain in this game from a scoring standpoint. And I think that their offense, we were pretty optimistic about their offense entering the season. And I think overall it's been a disappointment. We did get to see a little bit of Trey Benson at the end, but that I think it was because of like blowout situations. Like he had not played, he played 0 snaps in the previous game.
Yeah, a couple more notes for me. First, the direct backup, it seems, to Marvin Harrison was this kid, Xavier Weaver, undrafted free agent rookie out of Colorado, ran 30 routes in this game, did not catch a ball on 1 target. Schedule is doing the Cardinals no favors. I mean, Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, Jets over the next month for the Cardinals. So, yeah, like I said, I think worry meter is up at least a little bit on Arizona stuff for sure. Falcons. So, didn't think Kirk Cousins was like great in this game at Carolina, but when you face the Panthers, historically bad defense, it doesn't really matter that much. Falcons still put up 38 points on the road, mostly through Algier and Bijan going for over 200 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns combined. Evan, what did you think of Falcons' relatively easy win down in Carolina?
I think that, and Bijan did have the breakout game that you predicted. But Tyler Algier, he's not going away. Like he is not going away because he's a really quality player. And I saw that you tweeted a run that he had where he literally carried the pile for like 12 yards.
Crazy.
I mean, it's an injustice to the player. It's an injustice to the locker room. If you say, oh no, Tyler, you go back on the bench, they're going to keep playing him and he's going to continue to be like a fantasy viable flex starter, almost regardless of opponent.
Yeah. I mean, Bijan was good. He got 2 short touchdowns. He averaged over 6 yards per carry, but he still got out carried by Tyler Algier, 18-15 here in this game. They also had a 2-point conversion where they went to Algier for a run instead of Bijan, but still those really good spots. There's really good spots coming up. I mean, for this Atlanta team, Seahawks, Bucks, Cowboys, Saints. Their next 4 games. Falcons also have an incredible schedule in the fantasy playoffs. So I still like having Bijan on my team. I would not be selling him. I like having all these guys on my team, really. And yeah, Drake London. I mean, Drake London is going to compete for the league lead in targets at this point. You know, I mean, it's inevitable. I don't think he has like these big, huge plays like a Nico Collins type has, but in terms of like moving the chains and getting a bunch of targets, being a reliable fantasy starter, Drake London's there for sure. Carolina. Panthers dropped to 1-5. And like, as I'm watching this game, I'm thinking to myself, like, why? Why Andy Dalton? I get that he's better than Bryce Young, but you're 1-5 now. Bryce Young started what, like 18 NFL games or something? Why not put him back out there? You're 1-5. You're not getting anything from Andy Dalton anyways, regardless. Andy Dalton is certainly a good thing for Deontay Johnson, who continues to be one of the best fantasy wide receivers we have. 26% target share, 678-1 here for Deontay Johnson. Evan, do you think they keep sticking with Andy Dalton all year? And any other thoughts on Panthers stuff?
No, I definitely think that they will go back to Bryce Young eventually. Just it'll reach a point where, their offensive line has settled in. They've got Xavier Legette going, Deontay Johnson. Assuming that they keep him, they don't trade him. I think that they'll keep him. I mean, he's played really well. He had another really nice game here. But at some point, they will feel better about the supporting cast, and they'll go back to Bryce Young when it no longer makes sense to play Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
Jatavian Sanders, by the way, stepped up 7 targets, 5 for 49. Tommy Tremble suffered a concussion early in this game, and Jatavian Sanders, a 4th-round rookie, capitalized on that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good note on Jatavian Sanders. He had a really good role too, like almost every route and a ton of snaps for Jatavian Sanders. I know we say it every week. I mean, just to say it again, Chuba Hubbard's so good. And I think Jonathan Brooks is going to get activated here this week.
Yeah, he's going to start practicing.
But Chuba's not going away, man. He's too good. I mean, it's similar to the Algier situation. Even if Brooks is awesome, you can't go away from Chuba. He's just been too good. So I think a timeshare is coming there for sure. This Panthers defense. So next they play the Commanders, then the Broncos, then the Saints. This Panthers defense is allowing 4.0 touchdowns per game this season. That would be the most since 2022, when the Lions gave up 4.3 touchdowns per game. I mean, historically bad defense here for the Panthers. Again, they got the Commanders, Broncos, Saints next for anyone looking for streamers. Bears. So another good Caleb Williams game, this time in London against those Jaguars, 23 of 29, 4 touchdowns. Had one really, really bad throw that went for an interception, but that was just one blip. Moved really well, ran for 56 yards. I just want to point out, this game against the Jaguars, his last really good game was against the Panthers. The one before that was against the Rams. So I don't want to get like too excited, but it's obviously a good thing heading into a bye that they have confidence they're playing well. And after the bye, they have really good matchups also, Washington and Arizona. And then things start to get tougher for the Bears. So Evan, what do you think of Caleb's latest game here, this time against the Jaguars in London?
Yeah, I know a lot of people do that. Like, oh, it's a terrible defense. Well, nobody like goes and lights up really good defenses anyway. So I'm not taking anything away from the offense. Has gotten better every single week. Are we rescinding the name Shane Fraudrin, who like legitimately has made some adjustments? DJ Moore was talking about how they didn't have the first 15 plays scripted, and like now they do. And I mean, and they had that players meeting where they kind of confronted him and said, "Hey, we need to make some changes." All of a sudden, their running game is clicking. Caleb again has gotten better every single week. Cole Kmet, they kind of shoved Gerald Everett to the side, and that's Shane Waldron's boy. Like he's made some like quality adjustments.
Okay.
2025 head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Shane Waldron.
Listen, okay. I agree. He's made some adjustments. He's done some things better. Of course, your adjustments are going to look good when you're playing the Panthers and the Jaguars, right? And so I'm not going to sit here and say that their problems are solved. I mean, the Panthers and the Jaguars are just absolutely train wrecks on defense. So, yeah.
I mean, that is true. All those things are true.
Yeah, and Kmet's been awesome. Kmet is now fantasy's number 2 tight end behind only George Kittle. And like you think back to some of the summer FUD, and I was partially responsible for it. I started only taking Komet as part of Caleb's stuff in best ball. And even as Komet's ADP dropped, I wasn't taking him as a one-off. It's just a reminder that like this summer stuff can be really hard to parse, you know, and we were right at the beginning. Gerald Everett was playing a ton, but now he's gone back to Cole Kmet, which is obviously sharp. Last note I have on the Bears, Khalil Herbert has played a total of 6 snaps over the last 6 weeks. Free Khalil Herbert, man. I know you're not going to get anything from the trade market. Maybe you get like a 7th round pick. Let the kid play. There's plenty of teams that can use him, and I still think Khalil Herbert has a chance to land somewhere before the trade deadline. Cowboys. This was a full-on meltdown for the Cowboys at home. They lose 47-9 to the Lions. Right after the game, Jerry Jones is getting asked about firing Mike McCarthy. The defense is hurt and terrible. The offense has no one behind CeeDee Lamb. You can't give Ezekiel Elliott carries. It's real bad right now for Dallas. I don't want to overreact to like one game. It just feels really bad for Dallas right now. Evan, what do you think is going on with the Cowboys?
Well, it's kind of like what Mike McCarthy used to do in Green Bay, and everybody would get mad at him. Is he doesn't help the players on offense, and the Cowboys don't have receivers that can beat man coverage. CeeDee Lamb can, but other than that, they don't have anybody who can beat man coverage consistently. And the Lions just played man the entire game, and the Cowboys couldn't do anything. And also the Cowboys cannot run the ball.
Right.
So the Cowboys just they did almost nothing in this game at all. I mean, even CD, what did he finish with?
Yeah, like 7 for 83.
7 for 89. You know, I expected a lot more than that against Detroit. Everything feels really hard when you're watching the Cowboys. They are not a fun team to watch right now. And now they go into their bye. Jerry Jones was on his radio show this morning, and he just had some rambling, like he's losing it. You know, I mean, he's definitely losing it, and he shouldn't be making any personnel decisions. I know if you the Cowboys, the people around the Cowboys say that he doesn't do that anymore. That's Stephen Jones. But, I mean, there's no question if Jerry Jones wants something, like he's going to get that.
For sure. Other note that I had, afterwards, Mike McCarthy was asked about the rushing split. I mean, again, Zeke just can't play, and McCarthy seems to realize that. He said something like, Rico Dowdle needs more touches or something along those lines. At least the Cowboys are going into their bye. I mean, at least they're going to their bye. But when they come out of it, at San Francisco and then at Atlanta. So, you know.
Yeah, this is the year of the collapse of the Cowboys.
Not good. Speaking of those Lions, let's go to Detroit now. Obviously, really impressive. They go into Dallas and absolutely dominate. A lot of the power rankings now out there have the Lions as the best team in the entire NFL. I still think that 49ers are right there, if not slightly better than Lions, but it's certainly really, really close. It was an expensive win for the Lions, though, Evan. Aiden Hutchinson, done, leg surgery. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. This is already a team that in some ways struggles on defense, especially against the pass. But yeah, what do you think the fallout of the Aiden Hutchinson injury is, and any other Lions thoughts?
Yeah, that Aiden Hutchinson injury really sucks. He was leading the NFL in pressures. I think that he was the defensive player of the year favorite to that point. They also have recently placed Marcus Davenport and Derek Barnes on IR. And they also lost Kyle Pecco, who's like their number 4 defensive tackle, to a torn pec in this game. So those power rankings, while I mean, I don't think that the Lions are undeserving of being number 1, they are not like really predictive in any way, because this defense could all of a sudden start to fall apart, having lost so many players up front.
A lot of people are asking what's wrong with Sam Laporta. What's wrong with Sam Laporta? I talked about this some on Twitter. I played him on a team that ended up really good in tournaments this week. Sam Laporta has 15 targets all season for a 10% target share. Some tight ends who have seen more targets than Sam Laporta include Jordan Akins, Brenton Strange, Eric All, Jatavian Sanders. And, you know, Laporta was up at around a 20% target share last year. It's just gotten so wide and so efficient. In other words, what I'm saying is Khalif Raymond led the team in targets in this game with 6. Tim Patrick gets 3. You know,
by the way, Tim Patrick looked really good.
And that's what I'm saying. So it's not concentrated at all. And then the offense is so efficient, they don't get that many plays off, right? Jamison Williams catches a 60-yard touchdown. you don't have a bunch of plays to get Sam Laporta a bunch of 8, 9, 12-yard catches, right? So I don't know, man. Like, Laporta is not a focal point. Clearly, he had 1 target this entire game. He's at 10% for the entire year. Evan, how worried are you about Laporta stuff rest of season?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a girlfriend issue. Is his girlfriend not hot enough? I'm starting to worry about Sam Laporta a little bit here. Was not a Mackey Award winner either.
Yeah.
Dude, Ben Johnson has no respect for the Cowboys defense, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean,
he ran a hook and ladder with Penny Sewell. He did.
Which Penny Sewell looked pretty decent on. I mean, they were like actively trying to get linemen touchdowns. Yeah. They got the ball to everybody. It was an offensive demolition, and they got everybody involved. Dave Montgomery has scored a touchdown in 8 straight games. This offense is an absolute juggernaut, and I think that they're going to continue to have to be. If you're an owner of Lions skill position players, it's not the worst thing in the world that this Lions defense is starting to crumble.
Yeah, and also it's flowing through to Amon-Ra too. I mean, Amon-Ra only had 4 targets in this game. Was lucky to salvage his day as well. And yeah, the breakout of Jameson, and Khalif Raymond and Tim Patrick, and more efficiency. All this stuff hurts for sure. Last note, David Montgomery. Teams don't really extend running backs when they have 2 years left on their deal. It's like not normal practice. Lions love David Montgomery so much. 2 years left on his deal. They went out and gave him an extension last week, $18.2 million with $10.5 million additionally guaranteed. He's now locked on with the Lions through 2027. Let's go to Green Bay. Easy win for the Packers here over the Cardinals. Thought Jordan Love was reasonably sharp, although some of the throws were just like back foot, crazy, ended up getting completed. Did throw 4 touchdowns, 2 to Romeo Doubs, who's been going through some stuff, was really happy for him, and 1 to Christian Watson, who gets back from his ankle and looks really good, which is notable because Dontavian Wicks hurt his shoulder in this game and is week to week. Evan, what did you think of Packers' win over the Cardinals?
Yeah, another guy that really stood out to me in this game was Emmanuel Wilson, who got a ton of work late in the game, almost as like the late game closer. Mm-hmm. I thought he looked really, really good. Just eyeballing him as a player. He finished with 7 for 54 and 19-yard reception. If something were to happen to Josh Jacobs, like I like forget about Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah.
This would be Emmanuel Wilson's backfield. He has earned that. Romeo Doubs. I don't know what to do with Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs scores 2 touchdowns, but he only had 4 targets. He had a 13% target share. He is not, every week that he's not suspended for conduct detrimental to the team, he plays the most snaps and runs the most routes among all the Packers receivers, but he never has like big target games.
Yeah. He's like a better Mac Hollins or something like that,
Yeah.
Or a better better MVS.
Is he a sell high, or is he not because Wicks might be out for a while?
Yeah, I don't think Dobbs' role is going to change. I think the biggest winner of Wicks's injury is Christian Watson. I'd rather have Christian Watson than Romeo Doubs. Like, give me a guy that can score an 80-yard touchdown. That's not really Dobbs. So yeah. I still prefer Watson there. But yeah, I think Dobbs should be on a team for sure. I know Tucker Kraft did not hit in this game, but he did run 29 routes on 36 Jordan Love dropbacks. Still like having Tucker Kraft as like a borderline top 10, top 12 fantasy tight end.
Yeah, Luke Musgrave is on IR.
Yep. Let's go to the Rams, who will come out of their bye. Really good news. Sounds like week 7 was what the Rams were targeting for Cooper Kupp. He went through a workout on Monday. Reports were that the workout went really well. At this point, I kind of think Cooper Kupp's going to play on Sunday here in week 7. Puka Nacua, meanwhile, will not. Joe Noteboom could get activated this week. Steve Avila is still out. And they have a really good spot, home game against the Raiders as they come out of their bye. So it's exciting for Cooper Kupp owners right now. I think, Evan, any more thoughts on the Rams as they come out of their bye?
I haven't thought about them that much because they're coming out of their bye. But yeah, the Cooper Kupp stuff. What do you think that their 3 receiver set will be with Cooper Kupp back?
Yeah, I love Whittington, but I kind of think he overlaps a ton with Cooper Kupp. I have to think about that more, but my gut is that it won't be great for Whittington, and we'll see a lot of 2-2 Demarcus Robinson Kupp sets.
Yeah,
but I got to think about that more.
Yeah. I'll have my take in the matchups column this week.
Let's go to the Vikings, also coming out of their bye for a huge, huge NFC North game against the Detroit Lions. Big note on the Vikings is Aaron Jones had that hip injury going into their bye. He was spotted at practice Monday. We don't have an official report because it was Monday, but I think Aaron Jones at least has a chance to play in this game against the Lions. And then also TJ Hawkinson was participating in practice this week also. I don't think he's going to play anytime too soon, but sometime maybe week 8, 9, 10, something like that. I think we'll see TJ Hawkinson out there. We've talked plenty about how clean of a run out it's been for TJ Hawkinson. Evan, any Vikings thoughts as they come out of their bye?
Yeah, those were the two big notes. I think that Aaron Jones is likelier than not to play, but we will have more information Wednesday, Thursday. And then the Vikings get to face the Lions.
Yeah.
This Lions team that, has been demolished by injuries up front on defense.
All right, let's go to the New York Giants. This was Sunday Night Football. You're playing the Bengals at home. Brian Daboll is trying to save his job. No Malik Neighbors, no Devin Singletary, and they muster 7 points against a Bengals defense, which I think is like average at best. I know they're getting some guys back, and I think they'll play better, but average at best. There were certainly some good things. I thought Danny Dimes was okay again. Tyron Tracy is a player. Darius Slayton can definitely play, but yeah, 7 points at home against Bengals is not going to do it. Evan, what did you think of Giants' latest loss?
Yeah, I think that the biggest story is what's going to happen when Devin Singletary comes back, because that is a dude that Brian Daboll has been with in multiple stops, and they gave like a pretty sizable contract to during the offseason. But Tyrone Tracy, he's played pretty well. He can play in the passing game. Yeah, he had 6 for 57 as a receiver in this game. They gotta continue to use him. It's just, how is that distribution going to go moving forward?
Yeah, I think we'll see plenty of Tracy in the pass game, even when Singletary comes back. There was a take from a beat reporter, like it's going to be 80-20 in favor of Tracy when Singletary gets back. That I think is wild, and
I agree. Yeah.
My opinion, wrong. Like I think my gut was just touches going forward, 60-40 in favor of Singletary, 65-35 in favor of Singletary, something like that. But that is a far cry from what Singletary was getting before, and Tyron Tracy has earned it during this stint. It's the classic Wally Pipp type thing. I do think Malik Neighbors will be back next week versus the Eagles, which will change the complexion a lot. Like there's just not as many targets to go around. Malik Neighbors is getting 10, 12, 15 in a game. Let's go to those Eagles. I know the Eagles won here. They won 20-16 over the Browns. And I know the final line for Jalen Hurts looks decent, but this was more of a struggle offensively than I think it seems to a lot of people, which was concerning given that A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson were all back. They were coming out of their bye. It just didn't seem like a clean offensive performance for the Eagles. Evan, what did you think of this game? And again, we got good stats out of Devontae, A.J., and Hurts. I think there are people, though, that are just worried systemically more about Eagles offense going forward still. What do you think about their game against the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns do have a talented defense, but I think that, we have not seen, and this could be construed as a good thing, we have not seen the Eagles hit their peak offensively really in almost any game so far this year. Now, there have been injuries, and they lost Jordan Mailata, their stud left tackle. Looks like he's going to miss multiple weeks with, I believe, a hamstring injury. He got carted off with a hamstring. So that's a little bit concerning, because one of the things that we were celebrating about the Eagles, that they were coming out of their bye at 100%, and now they're nursing an injury to a key player. And then you had the situation with Nick Sirianni yelling at, and I was like, I saw Nick Sirianni yelling at the fans again, and I'm like, oh well, maybe he's just yelling at Browns fans that were talking smack. No, they were in Philadelphia. He's yelling at Eagles fans.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That guy needs to calm down.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, people in Philly do not think that the offense is where it should be, and I don't necessarily disagree. I will say this. When you have A.J. Brown, when you have Devontae Smith, you don't even have to play that well to put up good stats. I mean, these guys are so awesome, and the schedule the rest of the way. I tweeted it. I mean, it is the cleanest schedule you could possibly have. Giants, Bengals, Jaguars, Cowboys, Commanders, Rams, Panthers, Steelers, Commanders, Cowboys. I mean, so many good spots. Ravens, so many good spots through here. I'm still buying on all these guys. Saquon, I'm really just buying everyone. Should note Dallas Goedert left this game with a hamstring injury of his own. His direct backup is Grant Calcaterra.
Grant Calcaterra, good receiving tight end, cannot block at all.
Good. Let's go to the Seahawks. So this was a Thursday game. Seahawks went into that Thursday night game with the intention to run more. And I thought you could tell in this game they actually wanted to. Like, they fell behind a little bit, and they still really stuck with the run. But the way the game ended up going, they ended up throwing it 52 times again. I mean, it was inefficient. DK Metcalf was on tilt. He only had 3 catches on 11 targets. They lose the game. But again, Kenneth Walker in the pass game just absolutely smashing. Evan, what did you think of Seahawks' loss to the 49ers last Thursday?
Geno Smith has almost 30 more pass attempts than any quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, they have defensive issues, and then they made a trade for Roy Robertson Harris. I don't think that he's going to defensive tackle. I don't think that he's going to fix their defense, but I mean, they've had pretty big issues defensively, and I mean, you can run all over them, and so they have to answer back with a lot of pass volume, and that benefited. Nobody had a truly big game in the receiving department, but everybody got a little bit.
Yeah, and all the stuff we talked about last week about Kenneth Walker was super sticky, which I think was awesome. Falcons, Bills, Rams next for the Seahawks. More good opportunities for all these guys. So yeah, Seahawks and Bucks stuff. I mean, that's the stuff that feels best right now in terms of the late round best ball stacks. San Francisco. So Jordan Mason went down with a shoulder injury in the second quarter. Turned out to be a minor AC sprain. I think he's going to be mostly fine, but we'll see. But anyways, no problem. Brock Purdy, 255 more yards on 28 attempts as the Niners put up 36 points. I know people are excited about the Isaac Guerendo stuff here. Again, one of only 2 prospects in the last 20 years that weighed 220 pounds or more and ran a 4.33 at the combine. The other one was DK Metcalf. Patrick Taylor still played in passing situations. Doesn't sound like Jordan Mason's injury is serious. Christian McCaffrey could be back as soon as week 10 or so. So I'm not overly excited about Guerendo. But yeah, Evan, what do you think of Guerendo and any other 49ers takes from Thursday?
Yeah, it sounds like Jordan Mason's injury is not severe, maybe at all. They had a practice on Monday, and he was participating. So we'll see how that plays out over the course of the week. But I'm not sure that you're going to get anything out of Isaac Guerendo right off the bat. Yeah. Brock Purdy continues to play. I mean, I think he's playing better this year than he did last year. But because the 49ers are 3-3, he's not getting that MVP buzz. People were talking about him for MVP until like late in the season last year. Deebo Samuel, he did not truly have a deep Deebo Samuel game, but he did have that early 76-yard touchdown. Mm-hmm. So he wound up with a big fantasy day. George Kittle continues to crush every game that he's active for.
Yeah, one note that I had on like the Ayuk and Debo stuff, Juwan Jennings continues to earn more targets than he has at any point in his career. 19% target share on the season for Juwan Jennings. He had 5 in this game with everyone healthy. I mean, Ayuk only had 4, Debo only had 5 targets. And so when you're so efficient and you score from everywhere on the field so fast, can't be wasting 19% of the targets on Juwan Jennings. So yeah, I mean, floor on Ayuk and Debo is going to be low. Speaking of that, they play the Chiefs next. Really good game, obviously. Ricky Pearsall, back in practice Monday, first time since he was shot in that scary incident. So keep an eye on that. Bucks went into New Orleans and put 51 points on the Saints. I mean, Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin combo went ballistic again. Mike Evans struggled for the 1,000th consecutive game against Marshawn Lattimore and the Saints. Baker Mayfield is now fantasy's number 2 quarterback. Chris Godwin is now fantasy's number 2 wide receiver. Evan, what do you think of Bucks game against the Saints?
Yeah, and the story, one of the biggest storylines always when the Bucks play the Saints is Marshawn Lattimore against Mike Evans. Mike Evans had a really quiet game. He had 2 for 34. He had 2 early catches. Neither of them were against Marshawn Lattimore, and then Marshawn Lattimore just locked down. Marshawn Lattimore only gave up 1 catch for 8 yards that was not allowed to Mike Evans the entire game, and Chris Godwin went off. Chris Godwin's touchdown was sick down the right sideline, 55-yarder. You know, if we were to redraft today, Chris Godwin would be a second-round pick. Yeah. He has been incredible this season. You know, over the past couple of years, I started to think that maybe he was on the downswing of his career. He suffered that multi-ligament knee tear, and he just was not the same player for the last 2 years, really. And this year, he has just been come out guns blazing. I mean, he has been one of the best receivers in the league. Um, Really, really fun to watch. Another big story, a lot of big storylines when you score 51 points. This running back situation. I mean, I think that there's a really good argument to be made that Rachaad White is the Bucs' third best running back. Sean Tucker, who I've kind of made fun of for Anthony Amico for liking over the past couple of years, was incredible in this game. You wonder why is he, I think he had 9 offensive snaps entering this game on the season. He played really well in the passing game. I thought Bucky Irving looked really good too. Now the defense, like the Saints run defense in particular, is just atrocious, but the Bucs capitalize on their opportunities. We'll see how it goes, man. If I was the Bucs decision maker, or the running back coach, or the OC, I would roll with Tucker and Irving the rest of the way.
Okay. So after the game, Todd Bowles said it's about Sean Tucker, it's definitely worthy of making it a 3-headed monster. Now, that's something I think coaches say after somebody plays a good game until they actually realize how hard it is to actually have a 3-headed monster at running back, right? Like, that doesn't normally get executed with any type of volume. My take is that the Sean Tucker stuff, while I agree with you, I think it's right. That's not really how it works. Like, I don't think that they're just going to kick Rachaad White to the curb.
Right.
We spent a ton of time on this on the Waiver Wire show with Daigle if you want to hear more about it. But my take is still that Bucky and Rachaad White will be the main guys. Sean Tucker will be the third guy, despite what happened in this game. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I agree with Evan. If I was in charge, Rachaad White would be the one getting demoted. But I don't think he's going to completely phased out just because he got hurt.
One other note, and Jalen McMillan was coming back from an injury, but he was active for this game, and Sterling Shepard played ahead of him as the Bucs' third receiver.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard, Baker Mayfield's boy from Oklahoma.
Yeah, that is not good for the Jalen McMillions take whatsoever. Okay. Last NFC team is the Washington football team. They went to Baltimore in the Battle of the Beltway. Commanders did fine. They hung around, just didn't quite have enough. We knew what the plan would be. I mean, everybody's plan against the Ravens is the same, especially without Brian Robinson in this game. You throw it against the Ravens and you throw it a ton. Jaden Daniels dropped back 43 times versus 11 running back carries in this game. They're using Terry McLaurin more creatively. Like, I'm way more willing to take the L on Cliff Kingsbury than Shane Waldron right now. I mean, they are using Terry McLaurin in the right way. He made some sick catches in this game, and the Commanders get the Panthers next. So still an exciting time for the Commanders. Evan, what do you think of their loss to the Ravens?
Notes I had were that Eckler doubled up McNichols in snaps at 44-22. Eckler had like 10 DK points in the first half, and I think he had 0 in the second half. That was looking like a sharp call, and then he wound up kind of not getting to where we wanted him to go. Yeah, McLaurin is playing the best football of his career. Noah Brown has moved up to the number 2 receiver role, which I think is really interesting. A big, athletic guy who has bounced around in the NFL, but has flashed. I mean, he had a couple of 100-yard games last year with the Texans, and there's a lot of moving parts behind Terry McLaurin in Washington. It looks like Noah Brown could run away with that and become a legitimate fantasy factor because of his quarterback.
I mean, if there was a time to start guys like that, it would be against the Panthers. I still don't know that I would do it, but if there was ever a time, this game coming up against the Panthers is obviously one of the best ones, or the best one the Commanders will get all season in terms of matchup. All right, let's move it over to the AFC now. Start with the Baltimore Ravens. Another really good Lamar Jackson game here, predictably coming against that really bad Commanders defense. If the Ravens pushed instead of going to Derrick Henry at the goal line, I mean, Lamar Jackson would absolutely go completely berserk. But as it is, he's still such an incredible fantasy asset. Derrick Henry, Evan, is now on pace for 2,155 total yards and 25 touchdowns. What did you think of Ravens' game against the Commanders?
Yeah, and I love that now that there's starting to be some Hall of Fame rhetoric floating around about Derrick Henry. This is a guy that some analysts said coming out of Alabama should be a fullback, and he's like maybe the greatest runner of our generation. I mean, he's a stud, and he's having an incredible season. Oh my God. Um, Also having an incredible season, oh my God, is Lamar Jackson. Remember, this is year 2 of Todd Monken. It's only the second year of this system. He picked it up nicely in year 1, and then they got off to a little bit of a rough start in weeks 1 and 2, and ever since they have been on fire. Lamar Jackson, you remember when people used to call him a running back? God, they're idiots. He he was unbelievable throwing the football down the field
Yeah.
in this game. He averaged over 12 yards per pass attempt. Zay Flowers was on fire in the first half. Now, he didn't do anything in the second half because Derrick Henry did everything. And Mark Andrews had some production. But Zay Flowers had like 9 catches for 130 yards or something in the first half. 9 for 132 on 9 targets. We saw Bateman get involved, stay fairly involved. He's having a pretty nice season. Just everything is clicking right now for the Ravens offense.
Yeah, Zay Flowers is incredible. We actually had in props Zay Flowers 46-1 to lead Sunday in receiving yards, and it hit, and he only had catches in the first half. I mean, absolutely insane, but that's what you do to the Commanders, clearly. Mark Andrews did show up here, 366-1, but still only 18 routes on 30 dropbacks for Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely also ran 18 routes. My last note, Evan, I talked about this on the awards pod. I know you'll like this. It's gone now, but Derrick Henry MVP was 150-1. I somehow got $300 to win $45,000 on Derrick Henry to be the NFL MVP. I don't think he deserve. I don't think a running back can possibly actually deserve it. But I do think there's some rhetoric in these voters' minds, like a lifetime achievement award. Lamar just won it last year. Derrick Henry has given the league and his team so much. He's been such a good dude and a great player. Lifetime Achievement MVP award. How bad can it be? Anyways,
I love it.
I digress.
And you know that the DraftKings workers that will receive the $300, they will spend it very wisely.
All right. Anyways, we need to move on because during this show, another big trade happened as we move to Buffalo. So the Bills match the Jets on Tuesday. They give up a 3rd-round pick and a round 6 pick swap to get Amari Cooper. I mean, I love this for the Bills way more than I love the Devontae Adams move for the Jets. The Bills are a legit championship contender, and I actually think this really moves the needle for them because Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, Khalil Shakir, I mean, that's not it. So, Evan, initial reaction, I know we were just getting this news, but initial reaction to Amari Cooper getting dealt to the the Bills side.
Absolutely love the move. I thought it was necessary. I'm sure that they were in on Devontae Adams as well. This is a great fallback option. Amari Cooper's efficiency numbers look terrible, but I would just completely throw them out. His quarterback is maybe the worst in the league in Cleveland, and ESPN Stats and Info charted 21 of Amari Cooper's targets as off target, like uncatchable.
Yeah.
And that's 21 to 53. That's almost 40% of his targets were just completely uncatchable.
Yeah.
So just a total waste of time, a total waste of a down. And that's not going to be the case in Buffalo. I love it. You move Shakir into that like possession, separation, number 2 role. And Amari Cooper, I mean, I still think he can play ball. He had a great season last year. Actually, Matt Harmon, who's been a critic of Amari Cooper historically, thought that was the best season of Amari Cooper's career.
Yeah.
So I love this move for Buffalo. And what would you say it cost him, a 3rd and a 7th?
A pick swap in the 6th and a 3rd. Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. Amari Cooper is a huge winner here. I mean, huge winner, and I don't think that the Bills are suddenly going to go throw heavy, right? And by the way, if Amari Cooper comes in and starts eating up a bunch of targets, I don't think it's great for a lot of these guys. They are only attempting 26 passes per game are the Bills this season. Josh Allen's season high in pass attempts is 30. And the play calls in the red zone are like Josh Allen runs. So it's not like a turbo smash, but I think it's an awesome spot for Amari Cooper. Definitely a big upgrade, obviously, because he was playing with Deshaun Watson. The other guys, I'm a little bit worried about Shakir, Kincaid stuff a little bit, but yeah, still really, really exciting.
Got
As
to
for
talk about the running back, the Ray
yeah,
Davis.
so the game last night. So they go into MetLife for that big AFC East, and they win. James Cook was out. Big story was, of course, Ray Davis goes 20-97-0 rushing, 355-0 receiving. Ty Johnson got just 3 opportunities in this game. Ray Davis seemed to run away with it. So the question everybody's asking now, Evan, is when James Cook gets back, what do you think their backfield will look like?
That's I don't know. I think that they don't even necessarily know as we're sitting here today. Certainly James Cook, I mean, he's an explosive player, all-purpose playmaker. He's going to, I think, maintain the lead back role. The question becomes, does Ray Davis start to earn a weekly role? And I don't know about that. The coaching staff seems to love Ty Johnson. Ray Davis looked great. He led the team in rushing and receiving. He showed the ability to grind out yards. I've known for a while that Joe Brady was pounding the table for the Bills to draft him. He loves Ray Davis, but Ty Johnson in that number 2 sort of situational role player role, I'm not so sure that that's gonna all of a sudden go away when James Cook returns.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I,
We'll see.
I think it's a little bit different than the Giants situation because James Cook is a better player than Devin Singletary.
Right.
And Tyron Tracy might be a better player, or at least he's shown he can be a better player and have a more specific role, I think, than Ray Davis can. But I like them both. It's, it's a similar archetype of situation, but Tyron Tracy's path, I think, is a bit cleaner than Ray Davis's. But yeah, I still want to have Ray Davis on my team for sure. Let's go to Cincinnati. So Cincinnati gets this crazy Joe Burrow run to start the game on Sunday night against the Giants, 55-yard touchdown run. But surprisingly, the offense kind of struggled even against the Giants here. Evan, what do you think of Bengals' performance on Sunday night in MetLife? I'm sorry, the Bengals' performance Sunday night in MetLife.
Yeah, that was a great run by Joe Burrow to kick everything off. I didn't know that I knew he's a good athlete, but I didn't know that he had that in him. Chase Brown, I think, slowly but surely, and this is kind of how I thought that it might go entering the season, that it would start off really 50-50, maybe even a little bit more Moss, and then over the course of time, they would just kind of realize that Chase Brown is the more explosive player, gives you more juice as a runner, and can make plays in the passing game as well. I think that the backfield is starting to shift in his favor, but I also don't think that Zach Moss is going to go away.
Yeah.
And they continue to trust him in pass protection and to run more routes than Chase Brown. But I think that we have reached a point where we can start Chase Brown as an an RB2/flex with upside.
Yeah. Chase Brown set season highs in this game in snap rate, 62%, route rate, 54%, share of running back opportunities, 65%. They both fumbled. Browns was really scary, but he fumbled and it luckily went out of bounds. Zach Moss lost the fumble. On the season, Chase Brown is at 5.5 yards per carry. Moss is at 3.6. Chase Brown is PFF's number 17 running back. Moss is PFF's number 50. I mean, it's clear. You got to go to Chase Brown for more of it, and they're doing so. The other thing, Evan, on Jamar Chase, 4 games together this year, T. Higgins has seen 37 targets. Jamar Chase has seen 31. This is not that crazy. We've seen this in the past. People always want to bang on T. Higgins. Dude can play, man. I mean, he's going to be a number 1 receiver for someone in the NFL next year. Not the Bengals, but somewhere in the NFL next year is going to have T. Higgins as their number 1 wide receiver. So I think Jamar Chase will be fine, but you just got to realize that T. Higgins can out-target him on any day, period. Let's go.
Yeah, and also guys didn't necessarily meet box score expectations in this game because the Bengals only ran 50 plays.
Yeah.
And when that happens, there's not enough volume in production to go around.
All right, let's get to the Browns side of this trade now as we get to Cleveland. They lose this game to the Eagles on Sunday. Tuesday, they turn around and make a trade I think they had to make. I mean, they need to be in a full-blown rebuild. They're not going anywhere. You give up Amari Cooper. You get a round 3 pick from the Bills. One thing that you could say is all-out tank, right? That's why they continue to start Deshaun Watson. Just let's try to lose as many games as we can. Deshaun Watson is the worst quarterback in the NFL by basically any statistical metric. And Kevin Stefanski goes out there every Sunday night, every Monday and says, we're sticking with Deshaun Watson. He gives us the best chance to win. I don't think that Kevin Stefanski believes that, But I'm sure that he's been told by Browns brass, we're going to continue to lose games here. We're going to continue to stick with Deshaun Watson, $230 million, and that's just the way it's going to be. So, anyways, trade away Amari Cooper, keep starting Deshaun Watson. That's how you lose a lot of games. Evan, what do you think the fallout is here? Obviously, I think it's a target boost for David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. The question is, does it matter? Does a target boost from Deshaun Watson even matter?
It's a depressing situation if you compare and contrast it against the optimism that was flowing around the Browns last year during Joe Flacco's run. Fast forward to what's going on right now. I mean, it's the most depressing team in the league, and I've been hoping for Jameis Winston. We haven't gotten him. I would love to see DTR even, but it's just there's no hope there with Deshaun Watson whatsoever. And this team hasn't reached 20 points in a single game. Through 6 weeks. I mean, they have no offense whatsoever. It's pathetic.
I'm not that excited about Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Moore. I do think that the Njoku stuff is interesting because the bar to clear at tight end is so much lower. In other words, David Njoku starts getting 8 targets a game from Deshaun Watson with Amari Cooper gone. At the tight end position, that's probably enough for him to be a pretty decent asset. So, they have had a really soft schedule so far, and Deshaun Watson has still been absolutely atrocious. Also in this game, Jerome Ford pulled his hamstring. Nick Chubb is expected back week 7. I just don't know how much they can give or should give Nick Chubb if you're trying to lose your 1-5.
They just traded their number 1 receiver.
Yeah. Like, why put Nick Chubb out there to, like, rush him back from this knee thing?
This Deshaun Watson stuff is going to get Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry fired.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, like, really bad.
All right. The Nick Chubb stuff is exciting, though, man. I'm excited to see him play, even if I have a full fade on him, and I don't think it's the right thing. Like, I want to see him play again, so we'll see if he actually does play on Sunday. Let's go to the Broncos. Broncos were really bad through 3 quarters. I mean, they could not do anything here at home. They had 0 points against the Chargers. They do get hot late to make the final score look good, 23-16. It's just, I mean, Bo Nix rushing stuff has been awesome. He's on pace to run for 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. Beyond that, it's absolutely brutal. Evan, what did you think of Broncos game against the Chargers?
Yeah, so Cortland Sutton is the number 1 receiver for the Broncos, and they're just shuffling now at the complementary positions. Josh Reynolds is on IR. Troy Franklin, rookie who played with Bo Nix at Oregon, and Devon Villay are now the numbers 2 and 3 receivers. I don't know that means a whole lot. I mean, certainly, like, Cortland Sutton can't do anything with Bo Nix. I mean, their games are just totally diametrically opposite. But I mean, you know, from like, you know, a showdown standpoint, because they're playing on Thursday night, those are names to keep in mind. Greg Dulcich has been a healthy scratch now in back-to-back games, playing behind Lucas Krull. I don't know. Javonte Williams, like, he didn't have a good game last week. He actually has had a couple good games recently, but he's still the leader in the backfield. They did have Audric Estime active for week 6, but he only played 2 snaps. Jaleel McLaughlin, who I had some optimism about him entering the season, and he really hasn't really done a whole lot. But Javonte Williams will get a chance on Thursday night against a really bad Saints run defense.
Yeah. Also, Patrick Surtain sustained a concussion in this game. He'll be out for the short week against the Saints. Almost certainly. Sutton did have an insane touchdown catch, like one of the best catches that you will see all year in this game. But I agree with Evan. It's just not the right fit here for Cortland Sutton with Bo Nix. Let's go to the Texans. This was the first full game without Nico Collins, and they were fine. I thought CJ Stroud was sharp, 20 of 31 for 192, 3 touchdowns. The big thing, though, is what we talked about leading up to this game. Without Nico Collins, how concentrated can this get? And it was. Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, Stephon Diggs combined for 24 of CJ Stroud's 31 targets. 77% of CJ Stroud's targets went to 3 guys. When you have someone as good and efficient as CJ Stroud, and he's only going to throw to 3 guys, that's when we start getting some really big games. So I'm still excited about Texans stuff here. Dell, I thought, played a really good game. Diggs played a really good game. And Schultz was at least alive. Evan, what do you think of Texans here?
Yeah, Stephon Diggs had an awesome game and saw Christian Gonzalez, the Patriots' top cornerback, for vast majority of the game. So that was really impressive. I think that Stephon Diggs still has it to an extent. I don't think he's in his prime anymore, but I think he still is, a B plus sort of player and definitely a quality starter and a guy that you can rely on every week in fantasy, especially with no Nico Collins. Um, I got to take the L and admit that I was wrong. I was really skeptical about Joe Mixon coming back his first game back from the high ankle sprain. They had 4 running backs active on game day. I just thought that there were too many red flags here for Joe Mixon, and he wound up with a really big game. Now, they were, a long run. He had a 59-yard run, which really boosted his final stat line, but he scored both on the ground and in the air. And just the fact that he can bust a 59-yard run, that's a good sign. So to the people that wanted to play him, and if I discouraged, I'm sorry, and I got that wrong.
Yeah, the Mixon stuff is incredible. I mean, he looks so good. And also Dameon Pierce got back for this game, and he looked good. So clearly ahead of Akers and Agunawable is going to be Pierce. We updated the one injury away article on the site, and I think Dameon Pierce deserves a nice bump in that context.
The backfield is back to where they wanted it starting the season, with Mixon at 1, Dameon Pierce at 2. I think that Pierce is a guy to stash at the end of your bench. If something happens to Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, I think, becomes the guy.
For sure. At Packers versus Colts, next 2 games for the Texans, 2 pretty good spots.
And Mixon is coming off a high ankle sprain. Like he could have a setback at any time. So sure. I would encourage people to roster Dameon Pierce.
Let's go to the Colts. So I actually think Anthony Richardson was ready to play in this game, like 95%. His camp was saying he's ready to play. He was saying he's ready to play. Literally last second, like at inactives, Colts pull the plug, say they're going with Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco ekes out a 4th quarter comeback win in Tennessee. Now, the reports after the game were, barring a setback, Anthony Richardson will start in week 7. I don't know how you really sell that to the locker room, but they probably have to, because you have to let Anthony Richardson play. I mean, you're not going to win the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco anyways. You have to see what you have, Anthony Richardson. So I believe they're going back to them. I just don't know that they actually want to. Evan, what do you think about the way everything went down with the Colts this week?
I've been thinking, could they play both of them? I don't know. It's a really tough situation. They are playing Miami without Tua, so they could, they should theoretically be able to beat the Tua-less Dolphins with Anthony Richardson. So maybe that's how they're thinking about this. But, Joe Flacco's been really good. Joe Flacco should be start. He wasn't great in this game, but he's been solid. He doesn't give the ball to the other team. Yeah. If the Browns had him, the Browns would probably be 4-2.
Right. The big thing for me with Flacco is the Josh Downs stuff. And I know Michael Pittman came into this game with a back injury that he was playing through. It seemed really bad. But I think you can make a case that Josh Downs might just be straight up better than Michael Pittman. Josh Downs the last 3 games, 8, 9, 7 catches, has scored 2 touchdowns. Feels like he's always open. I don't know, Evan, are you worried that Downs has completely moved ahead of Michael Pittman here, even though they were drafted, 8 rounds apart in fantasy?
Michael Pittman did have a nice touchdown against L'Jarius Sneed in this game. I think that Josh Downs has shown the ability to consistently earn targets when he's been healthy, has been an explosive player. I don't know. To me, they're different styles of player.
They are.
Sort of like the Diet Coke version of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
Right now, I guess you'd probably say that Chris Godwin is the better player. I don't know. I think that they're both pretty darn good players.
Yeah, I think I'd rather own Josh Downs if Flacco was starting, I guess is my point. But yeah, without Flacco, both these guys are going to be tougher clicks for me.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. They, of course, had their bye. Rashee Rice underwent his surgery to repair his PLC. Not ACL, PLC, but it's not necessarily better.
PCL.
Sorry, PCL.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
I did see some reporter put PLC, but it's a PCL.
Okay, PCL. Anyways, it's not good for Rashee Rice, man. It's the same timeline as the ACL. It's maybe more complicated. Suspension is coming in 2025 as well. I'm just sad on the Rashee Rice stuff. More for my bags than for the Chiefs or Rashee Rice or anything like that. But yeah, he's officially done. Anyway, the big question for me coming out of the bye for the Chiefs is, will Kareem Hunt continue with the momentum he saw before the bye and completely seize control of this backfield? That's what it looked like going into the bye. And then also the Juju stuff. Is he going to be effective in some version of that Rashee Rice role? Evan, any thoughts on Chiefs for you as a
I don't have any notes on the Chiefs other than the stuff that you mentioned already.
Oh, one more thing. Post-bye bump for Xavier Worthy, man. They need it so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
they need it. They need to get him more involved right away. He's been good. Give him more chances. You know, like I know they schemed some stuff to him, but they need to make concerted effort to get him the ball more. I think, and maybe coming out of the bye, they can do that for Xavier Worthy.
I'm with you. The all 22 watchers say that he is valuable enough because he is changing coverage and creating space for other dudes in the offense. Their running game has been good, even though they lost Pacheco. Juju comes out of nowhere and goes off. So that has been. But I'm with you though. I think that they need to get the ball in his hands more.
All right, let's go to the Raiders. And before we get to the game, let's talk about the fallout of the Davante Adams trade. Obviously, we have a sample here as Davante Adams has not been playing due to a likely Fugazi hamstring injury. Massive, massive winner to me is Brock Bowers, who I would probably bet on right now to finish as fantasy's #1 tight end as a stone cold rookie, which is absurdly impressive. Evan, what do you think about fallout on Brock, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, any other Raiders fallout from the Davante Adams trade?
Yeah, I mean, Jacoby Myers is hurt right now.
Yep.
But he will return as their #1 receiver. Trey Tucker, another situation where Jacoby Myers is a very different player than Trey Tucker. But you could make an argument that Trey Tucker could lead at least the Raiders wide receivers in production the rest of the way. And then, yeah, I would also bet on Brock Bowers finishing as the overall fantasy tight end 1.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Tucker airballed this week without Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers out there, which is scary to me. And, Trey Tucker is more of like a gadgety guy, a fast guy. He's awesome to watch with the ball in his hands. He needs like scheme stuff a little bit. I think he'll be pretty hit or miss here, but certainly a little bump for him. Jacoby's the one, as long as his injury is not serious, Jacoby's the one that I actually think is like the sneaky big winner because he's going to get a ton of targets. I mean, you could see 30% for Jacoby Myers here going forward, despite the presence of Brock Bowers.
Dylan Laub, a 6th-round pick who some had an affinity for, goes in 1 carry, loses the fumble, adios.
Yeah. As for the game, they did score a touchdown early, and then they just could not do anything with AOC, Aiden O'Connell. But in fairness to him, he's throwing to Trey Tucker and Christian Wilkerson and Alex Bachman, but it's ugly.
Alex Bachman. He sounds like a piano player.
There's just a joke. Let's go to those Dolphins. So good news. Mike McDaniel came out Monday and said he does expect Tua Tagovailoa to play again this season. He's not sure exactly when. They're not going to rush him. It won't be this week. So, as we suspected, we're going to see Tua again this season. I'm pretty confident in that. In the meantime, they're going to start Tyler Huntley. McDaniel said that the week 6 bye allowed Tyler Huntley to really, quote unquote, jump into the finer points of the Dolphins' complex offense. Certainly a good spot here, home against the Colts, but I have no faith in Tyler Huntley. Any other thoughts on Dolphins here as they come out of their bye, Evan?
I'll just say Devon Achane suffered a concussion in week 5. Bye in week 6. He should be ready to roll.
All right, let's go to the Steelers. So more breaking news today. This is from Tom Pelissero. And by the way, Steelers lost the game in ugly fashion. Fields wasn't great as a thrower in that game against the Raiders, but 11-59-2 rushing. He has them at 4-2. Again, they won that game. I mean, they won that game pretty easily. So I guess it was surprising to wake up Tuesday to this tweet from Tom Pelissero. The Steelers plan to give Russell Wilson first-team reps in practice this week, putting him in line to make his season debut and start Sunday night against the Jets. Pittsburgh is 4-2 with Justin Fields, but Russ Wilson's calf is fully healed, and now he gets his shot. So assuming this is true, it's a pretty bold move to bench a quarterback who's 4-2 on the season. Certainly hasn't performed great as a thrower, but I don't think Russell Wilson's going to perform great either. And at least with Fields, you get the rushing. So I don't know about this move, Evan. What do you think about, looks like Steelers are going back or going to Russell Wilson?
I'm in I'll believe it when I see it mode. Um, it was interesting because there were a bunch of different reporters that reported this, but they kind of reported it in different ways.
Yeah.
Tom Pelissero was the guy, and Pelissero's awesome. I mean, I remember when he used to cover the Vikings, he would so diligent and thorough, and he's like a legit good actual sports analyst. Now he's like just a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Love Tom Pelissero. Met him in real life. Great dude. The way that he, um, the way that he wrote this report was different. Like he was more like, all right, Russell Wilson's going to start
Yeah.
almost. And then the way that Mike Tomlin presented it is almost that it was going to be like an in-practice competition between Fields and Russell Wilson. I don't know. I will believe it when I see it. I think that Justin Fields, although he has not been perfect and he's not been great or exceptional, I think he's earned the right to continue to start games until he truly falters.
I mean, his ability to run, make plays for this offense on a team that is devoid of playmakers outside of George Pickens, like I think you need that
Right.
out there. And so, yeah, I'm
And
surprised.
they're 4-2 coming off a 32-13 road win.
Yeah.
I know it's the Raiders, okay? They stink, but that's a weird time to bench a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. Najee Harris was incredible. This might have been the best game I've ever seen Najee Harris play. I mean, it absolutely had to be, and that was with Jalen Warren back. Najee led 16-9 in opportunities, 31-25 in snaps. You can make an argument that going to Russ Wilson would be good for Najee because he'll have more goal line opportunities, right? Justin Fields has what, like 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns already? Those should, in theory, go to Najee around the goal line now. So maybe a little boost there, but man, he was good. The other note that I had was George Pickens' usage. In week 5, it was weird. In week 6, back to normal. Only 67% of the snaps, but 85% of the routes and 8 targets for a 33% share. So good to see that on George Pickens. Have any thoughts on Najee, Pickens, or any other Steelers stuff before we move on?
I have an FFPC main event team. We're doing really well with Ben Gretsch, and we were on the clock in the 8th round, and I was like, we have to take Najee Harris in the 8th round. He's like, no, I don't want any part of Najee Harris. So we started him like in the first 5 weeks, and he's getting a ton of touches. I'm like, this is the week. This is the week. This is the week. We finally bench him.
Oh no.
In week 6, and he goes off, and as you mentioned, like he looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like dipping and dodging and stiff arming,
Yeah.
and I mean, he was looking hot out there, man, Najee Harris. But I like that note that you bring up, though, that Fields vulturing all these close in touchdowns. That it could be a good thing if Russell Wilson goes in there, because he's probably not going to do that at the same rate.
No, definitely won't. But I mean, the concern is, will they be in the red zone with Russell Wilson? We'll see. Like last time I saw Russell Wilson, it did not look like he could play whatsoever. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Last team today is the Tennessee Titans. They lose again, this time at home to Joe Flacco's Colts. This is a mess because like Calvin Ridley is pissed after the game. Will Levis gets off 27 attempts and it results in 95 passing yards. Calvin Ridley had 8 targets and 0 yards, 0 catches. I mean, absolutely insane. I don't know what they should do at this point. I said that I thought Mason Rudolph would give them a better chance to win. Doesn't seem like they want to go that route. Evan, what did you think of Will Levis's latest meltdown this time home against
this
Colts?
guy can't play at all. There was a YouTube commenter last week who was talking about how, we were talking about like, quarterbacks that have historically been ruined by their organizations because they were thrown into bad situations. Dude, watch Will Levis play, please.
Yeah.
This guy is terrible. In the matchups column last week, I just looked at, you remember he threw 4 touchdown passes in his first game. And then if you just look at all of his other games, I mean, he is awful.
Yeah.
Like he's not good at the game. And that's the biggest problem. There was I saw on the internet, there was on Twitter, like a review of all of Calvin Ridley's targets from week 6.
Yep.
I think he had 8 of them.
Yep.
And I mean, just a bunch of them are like not even close.
Right.
And that's on the thrower, Will Levis. Will Levis is not a starting NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I also think Calvin Ridley's like generally overrated. Like his underlying metrics were not great for much of his career outside of that one in Atlanta. But yeah, Will Levis like clearly isn't it. I assume they have to go to Mason Rudolph soon. You might want to think about if they trade DeAndre Hopkins. Like I definitely think that's possible. He looked healthier here to me, 21 out of 30 routes for DeAndre Hopkins. He can still play, I think, and can help a team. We'll see about at the deadline for that.
Chiefs should get him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome for the Chiefs. Tajee Spears went down after 6 carries in this game with a hamstring pull. Tony Pollard, explosive through the hole on that touchdown, man. 17 carries, 93 yards, 1 touchdown, and caught 3 balls. This is not it, though, Evan. Next 2 games, at Bills, at Lions. Like, they're going to get freaking smoked. And at that point, it's going to be hard not to go to Mason Rudolph.
You know what Will Levis is? Will Levis is what everyone thought that Josh Allen would be. You know, all the like skeptics.
The hater. Josh Allen. For people who don't realize, Josh Allen coming out, nobody liked him except people in the NFL. Everybody else hated him.
Yeah. And people thought he was just going to be like legit bad. And you know what? He was bad to start off. But that's what Will Levis is.
For sure. All right. That is going to do it for a very busy, well, maybe the most busy team-by-team show in the history of ETR team-by-team shows. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the subscribe button on our YouTube. I do think if you guys are listening to this on the podcast, that's great, but you'll get way more out of it if you listen on YouTube and hit the subscribe button there. It is indeed free. For Evan, for producer Ryan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.